Today, we're diving into cases filled with twists you genuinely won't see coming. Some of these stories are so strange, so layered, they feel like something written for a thriller movie. But every single one is real. Our first case is both shocking and deeply complicated, packed with turns that make it almost impossible to believe. This isn't just one tragedy, it's several, all tangled together in a way that's hard to comprehend. As a teenager, Sharon Marshall seemed to have her entire future ahead of her. She was known as a standout student, reportedly a lieutenant colonel in ROTC, and someone widely recognized for both her intelligence and kindness. When she graduated high school in 1986 in Forest Park, Georgia, she had earned a full scholarship to the Georgia Institute of Technology, where she planned to study aerospace engineering and chase her dream of working for NASA. Despite that incredible opportunity, Sharon never made it to college. She had been hiding something. She was pregnant during her final months of high school. The father, her boyfriend at the time, never knew about the baby. Sharon kept the secret carefully, eventually giving birth and placing the child, a baby boy, with a wealthy couple from Texas for adoption. The experience clearly disrupted her plans, and at one point she even attempted to run away with her boyfriend, though it didn't work out. With her future derailed, Sharon moved to Tampa, Florida, hoping for a fresh start alongside a man named Franklin Delano Floyd. While living with him, she began seeing another man and soon found herself pregnant again. Just like before, she never told the father. This time, however, she chose to keep the child. In 1988, she gave birth to her son, Michael Gregory Marshall. Her relationship with Frank was complicated and difficult to define. Whether romantic or not, they lived together and both contributed to raising Michael. Frank worked as a painter, but ongoing back issues made steady work difficult. As a result, Sharon took on work as an exotic dancer to support them, while also relying on welfare assistance. People who knew her described her as warm and friendly, and she became particularly close with a younger coworker, 18-year-old Cheryl Comesso. Despite their friendship, Cheryl often clashed with Frank. There were even rumors that Cheryl and Frank may have had a brief involvement, though nothing was ever confirmed. Then, in 1989, during a weekend boating trip involving all three of them, tensions exploded into an argument between Cheryl and Frank. Not long after that incident, Cheryl reportedly contacted social services, accusing Sharon of hiding income from her dancing job while still collecting welfare. The report meant Sharon lost her benefits, and Frank was furious. He confronted Cheryl outside the club where they worked, and witnesses later said he punched her during the altercation. Shortly afterwards, Cheryl left her father's home to visit a friend, but she never arrived. When she failed to check in, her father reported her missing. Her abandoned Corvette was later found at the airport, and an investigation began. Frank and Sharon quickly became persons of interest, though no solid evidence connected them to her disappearance. Soon after, they left the area altogether, adopting new names as they traveled, which only raised more suspicion. The pair eventually settled in Tulsa, Oklahoma, even marrying in 1989. Frank claimed the marriage was simply to give Michael a proper family name, though they continued to use aliases. Sharon went back to dancing, and once again she made friends easily, but Frank's behavior consistently pushed people away. He was known to be aggressive, and on one occasion he got into another altercation with one of Sharon's coworkers. When the woman suggested Sharon should leave him, Frank chillingly replied that if she ever did, he would kill her. Unbeknownst to him, Sharon had already been planning to leave. She had met someone else and was considering starting over, but fear held her back. She worried about what Frank might do to her or her son if she tried to escape. Before she could act on those plans, tragedy struck. Sharon was found unconscious on the side of a highway, apparently the victim of a hit and run. Frank claimed he had been asleep at the time. She was rushed to the hospital but never regained consciousness. Friends visited her and believed she was improving, but suddenly Frank refused to let anyone see her. Just 5 days later, Sharon died. Suspicion immediately surrounded Frank's actions, especially since she had seemed to be recovering. A doctor noted older bruises on her body and classified her death as a homicide, suggesting the fatal injury might not have come from a vehicle at all. While nothing could be proven, many believed Frank was responsible, particularly since Sharon's coworkers, not Frank, ended up paying for her headstone. After her death, Frank tried to collect on an $80,000 life insurance policy he had taken out just months earlier, but his use of aliases caused issues with the paperwork. Eventually, he provided his real name, Frank Delano Floyd, and everything unraveled. Authorities discovered his disturbing criminal history, including a conviction in 1962 for abducting and assaulting a 4-year-old girl. He had escaped custody, committed further crimes, and spent years on the run using false identities. Once identified, he was arrested again. Before fleeing, Frank had placed Michael into social services. The boy entered foster care, where his behavior raised concerns. He barely spoke, communicating mostly through screams and sounds. Though Frank insisted he was Michael's father, a DNA test later proved otherwise, ending their visits. When Frank was released from prison in 1994, he began stalking Michael and his foster family in Oklahoma.
Knowing he wouldn't regain custody legally, he planned a kidnapping. On September 12th, he showed up at Michael's school, pulled a gun on the principal, James Davis, and forced him to hand over the boy. He then kidnapped both Michael and the principal, later tying Davis to a tree and fleeing with the child. A massive search followed, but it took 2 months before Frank was captured in Louisville, Kentucky, without Michael. He refused to reveal what had happened to the boy, coldly stating it was no one's business. The case took a major turn in 1995, when skeletal remains were discovered in Florida. Around the same time, a mechanic in Kansas found a disturbing set of photographs in a truck previously used by Frank, images of a bound and beaten woman. The remains were eventually identified as Cheryl Camesso. Frank was convicted of her murder and sentenced to death. But those photographs revealed something else, images of a much younger girl being abused. Investigators began searching for her identity, leading to one of the most disturbing revelations yet. In 2014, Sharon's true identity was finally uncovered. Her real name was Suzanne Marie Sevakis, the daughter of a woman named Sandy Chipman. Years earlier, Frank, using another alias, had married Sandy and later kidnapped her children while she was briefly in jail. He split them up, placing some into foster care, but kept Suzanne, raising her as his own daughter. He moved frequently, changed her name multiple times, and subjected her to years of abuse. Eventually, he even married her. The truth was horrifying. Sharon had been kidnapped as a child, raised by her abuser, and later became his victim again as an adult. As if that wasn't enough, Frank later admitted to murdering Michael while on the run, claiming he had shot the boy and disposed of his body along Interstate 35. Despite extensive searches, no remains were ever found, and it's believed wildlife may have destroyed any evidence. Frank was never convicted for Sharon's death, though many believe he was responsible. To this day, he refuses to speak about it, and remains on death row for Cheryl's murder. Our next case is just as tragic and unsettling. On August 24, 1980, Gregory Villemin was born in a small village in eastern France. His family lived a peaceful life until they began receiving anonymous threats, letters and phone calls promising revenge against his father, Jean-Marie. The messages continued for years without explanation. Then, in October 1984, 4-year-old Gregory vanished from his yard. Soon after, a call came in claiming he had been kidnapped, murdered, and thrown into a river. Tragically, his body was found the next day, bound and drowned. The case shocked the nation and became known as one of France's most infamous mysteries. Suspicion fell on multiple family members, including a cousin who was briefly arrested but later released. In a shocking act of vengeance, Gregory's father killed that cousin, believing him guilty. Meanwhile, Gregory's own mother was accused based on handwriting analysis, though she was later cleared due to lack of evidence. Over the decades, the case has been reopened multiple times, with new techniques like DNA testing and stylometric analysis applied, but still, no clear answers have emerged. Our final case centers on Nicholas Barclay, a troubled teenager from Texas who disappeared in 1994. Years later, in a twist no one expected, a young man claiming to be Nicholas was found in Spain. He told a story of abduction and survival, and incredibly, his family accepted him, even though his appearance had changed drastically. Eventually, investigators discovered the truth. The man was actually a French con artist named Frédéric Bourdin, known for impersonating missing children. What made this case even more unsettling was the family's reaction. Despite overwhelming evidence, some of them continued to insist he was Nicholas. Bourdin himself later claimed the family must have known and suggested they were hiding something darker. The real Nicholas was never found, and suspicions lingered, especially around his brother, who had made a strange call shortly after Nicholas disappeared. Before any conclusions could be reached, the brother died of a drug overdose, leaving the case unresolved. These cases remind us just how strange reality can be, far stranger than fiction, and sometimes the truth is more disturbing than anything we could imagine.